Well, I can't say that an excavator's really at all a good way to split a tractor. Well, we're back here again on our Ferguson To20 project. Now, if you'll remember from actually our first video project, we had gotten this thing running. We wanted to see if it'd still run pretty good before we spent a whole bunch of time and money on it. She runs pretty good, so I think we're going to do some work and make it usable around the farm here. Now, if you'll remember from our first video, we had a pretty good rear main seal leak. Before we go to dumping money into engine oil and transmission oil, that's pretty high on the list to fix. So we're going to split it and change the engine rear main seal and the transmission input shaft seal. And since we're putting seals in it, it looks pretty wet back here on the PTO shaft, so we'll get that changed while we're at it. Now, at some point soon, we're going to have to tackle the wheel seals, but let's get it moving first. Now, thankfully, this is going to be a pretty simple splitting project, but we're going to try to do it right out here on the dirt, show that it can be done like that. It'd be way easier if we had a concrete floor with some roll around shop floor jacks. That'd be the easiest way to do it. Now, when you split tractors, usually the rear end's pretty predictable. You can have one floor jack to hold it up off the ground and move it around. But the front's pretty unpredictable because it pivots on the front axle. So most tractors you can block or chain that up to keep it from pivoting, and then all you do is use another jack to raise and lower it. But we don't have the luxury of a floor, so now a feller could put him a steel plate or a piece of plywood under it to run those floor jacks, but we don't even have the floor jacks around here right now, so we're gonna do this a little bit redneck style. Easy to take off if the bolts is already loose. Just getting the wiring disconnected. Gotta redo most of it anyway. The wire there's a fine example. Much left of it. Alright, let's get these bottom stabilizers off that go to the front end. Don't beat your hand between the tie rod and that bar. Ask me how I know. Because it can come up on you. Now we'll probably try to take the tie rod off from this end. There's one. Now we're just going to take these and fold them back like this. Keep them out of the way, keep them from getting bent. We don't really want to have to take that loose yet. Now for our governor and throttle linkage here, I'm not really sure what this is supposed to be factory. I may have to look that up, but looks like we got a washer welded to the end of this shaft. We're gonna have to grind that off to get the shaft out of there to get it out of the way. but it goes back here to the column. And it looks like we got a bigger washer welded there. Like I said, I don't know what's factory on it. That doesn't look very to me. Got an old piece of tie wire for the linkage there. We're just gonna pull this linkage here off, and then we're gonna try to pull this rod back far enough to slide it out of this bracket. Alright, we got our hose removed from the carburetor. We got our oil sending unit removed and out of the way. Got a paper towel plug put in it, keep the dirt out. We got our governor shaft removed here. Now, because of the way the wire's bent, ain't no way I'm gonna be able to get that out too easy without getting crazy with it. We're just gonna have to be careful with it, make sure it stays out of the way. And that pretty well does it for all of that. We're gonna remove our hood, that way we don't dent it any worse than it already is. Then we're gonna come back and block it up. And we got a stud there with a nut and bolts all the way around the bell housing. Alright, we got a strap going between each arm. That way they don't try to wander off on us. We got most of the bolts removed after I blocked the back half of the tractor up really good. Now normally you would block or set the front end up and move the back half of the tractor away from it. Usually a lot easier to do it that way. Now anytime you're doing something like this, you want to be careful, because like this ear will be easy to break off, so you don't want to get crazy with it. But to some people's horror, we got a lifting strap, you know, properly rated by our crane. So we're gonna pull the last two bolts out and try to just barely gently swing it away. Want to be easy with it, because this will get pretty silly. This thing will want to tip side to side, or if we ain't careful, it'll want to just nosedive. Alright, I put us another strap to the front to keep us stood up straight and keep it from nosediving. Pick up just a little bit. Of course, you got to make sure you remove all the bolts. Just got to be careful with it, because this could get pretty western fast. And that's all there is to it. I bet some of y'all are loving the safety factor on this. But you gotta keep life interesting. See, we've got a little bit of hardware in here. That actually looks like a broken tooth. Have to find out where that came from. Our main goal was to split it so we can get this flywheel off and see what rear main seal we have. I was having a hard time finding out whether it was supposed to be a rope seal or just a regular spring mechanical seal. You had your To20, TEA20, and TE20, I believe. And I'm having trouble getting a definite answer on which one it had, so we're gonna tear it apart and find out exactly which one it is. Now, them teeth I found in the bell housing, I think it's off of an old starter. They look like starter teeth. The clutch was a little bit rusted to it. But we'll clean it all up good. It's not terrible. I might check the thickness on it and find out what thickness I'm supposed to have on these discs. We're gonna try to run with what we got for now, but we'll see. Luckily the clutch disc didn't have a whole lot of grease on it or nothing. Slowly wiggle it on. Now these teeth I found in the bell housing, they actually look like old starter gear teeth. That's exactly what they look like. But we ain't missing none on this starter, so hopefully there won't be nothing to deal with that. Now our rear main seal was definitely what was leaking. As hard as a rock and cracking. You got 3 bolts out here, but you got to pull the oil pan off to get the bottom 2 bolts because they come in from the other direction. That's really weird. And that only took us about 2.5 hours to get to this point. All right, well, it's a few days later. Got us a new oil seal picked up. Looks like it's the right size. This is a pretty interesting oil pan. I don't know if you've ever seen one of these tractors, but they ain't exactly got an oil filter on the side of the motor, so you get to it in here. May have gotten a little water in the oil at some point, but it's not that bad. It's kind of an interesting brown color to it. Still seems in good shape though. Man, look at that. Just got the goop in there. Hopefully we ain't gonna have no cooling issues, I don't know. Well, I poured about 4 water bottles worth of water in the radiator, so it wasn't completely empty or nothing. So surely we ain't got a water getting into the oil problem. Well, I was wanting to give you a sneak peek of how the filter was in these, but kind of hard to show you that if they don't have an oil filter in there. That's a little less than ideal. Anyway, those are the 2 bolts we've been trying to get to right there. Let's see about taking that seal cover off, and then we'll clean up where this oil pan gasket goes. Back here on the back, we got 3 other bolts. Simple as that. We're gonna get our old seal housing here cleaned up, get this gasket and all cleaned off. The crank still looks good. We'll clean the back of the block off and get it set back up. Alright, I cleaned everything up. We got our seal, our gasket, and some RTV on both sides of the gasket. Now, I'm an ultra black RTV kind of person. I've never had a gasket leak after I put RTV on it. A lot of people will fight you on that, but I use it and have good luck out of it. But before I put the seal in there, I'll put the RTV around the outside of the seal to seal it to this housing. I've had them leak between the seal and the metal before. So on engine blocks, you have that split on that rear main cap, so you end up having to put a little bit more right there where the block's cut. And on these 2 bottom holes, we're going to put RTV around the bolt heads themselves and the washers, because if you didn't, oil would leak right out of that through them threads of that bolt. So same way with cooling or whatever. There you go. We got our oil pan and our blocks mating surfaces cleaned up. She looks pretty clean. Now, I knew these had a filter in the oil pan, which I thought was really interesting. But I was kind of dumbfounded whenever I didn't see a filter in here when I took it apart. So I had to do some research. And apparently, you see, this is the oil pump up here. This is our suction tube. The suction tube does not have a filter on it. It ain't like modern engines. That's crazy to me. But these ain't as tight of a tolerance as on these, so it's not a huge ordeal. But in my eyes, I guess you need to change oil in these a little more often than the newer stuff. But anyway, the filter goes on the return side of it. It's got a little hole drilled right here, so the filter just slips up on there. Now, apparently this is a common thing, you know, people taking these apart and there not even being a filter in it, which is pretty interesting. They don't have a bypass, so the only oil that gets filtered in the engine is what little bit comes out that hole, which is pretty interesting. So it'd pay to keep these a little cleaner if you can. So since I have it, I'm gonna go ahead and just poke this filter on here. Now apparently I'm missing some pieces. Like, I think there's supposed to be a screen that goes around this. But I don't know that that's something would be easy to find, or if it's even something we should worry about finding. Now, I did see that our oil pan's bent, so they had all kind of gasket material for the bottom plate to seal it up. So we're gonna try to seal it up with RTV, and I have a new gasket to go on it. I don't have much faith in it holding up, so we're gonna see if we can get it to seal good enough to run for now. We're probably gonna end up having to get an oil pan for it at some point. Now, as you can see, I've run out of daylight, so we're just gonna put the oil pan on it for tonight. Obviously, when you're working on engines, the less dirt you can get in them, the better. Shouldn't be getting any at all, but dust and stuff. You want to try to keep all of it out you can. But I learned something new there. Well, we got the oil pan on there and torqued down. Winter's setting in already, so daylight's leaving us fast during the day. After you spend your 8 hours working for somebody else, it's kind of hard to do stuff at home when it gets dark an hour and a half once you get home. So we're gonna have to sure enough get us a poor boy shop put up for this winter. Probably for a couple of winters, honestly. So we'll have that coming up. Alright, we're back out here the next day. We got the old super crates for blocks. I'm sure that's safe. Now we got our oil pan and our rear main seal put back in. Everything glued up good. So that means we get to turn our attention to the input shaft on the transmission. We're going to try to get all this cleaned up pretty good. We got that pretty clean. You know, if we was going to restore this tractor, I'd probably spend a lot more time cleaning it out, but time nor budget allows a restoration on this one at the moment, so we're just trying to get it going. Now, I get a question asked a lot by people. They'll see this cotter key wiggling around out the bottom of their tractor. They ask me why they do that. So if your engine or transmission shaft seals leak, it gets in this cavity. Well, you don't want it on the clutch, so they drill holes in usually 1 or 2 holes in the bottom of this housing to keep that from happening. Well, over time that hole will get stopped up with dirt or grass or whatever, or dirt dauber. So all they do is put a cotter key in there, and while you're driving around, this cotter key vibrates, and it usually always keeps that hole cleaned up pretty good. Pretty cheap, easy way to do that. I've seen even modern tractors same way. Keeps these dry clutches from getting oil on. Now, I had to replace this one. Kind of absurdly long, but it's what I had. So to replace this seal in this housing back here, we have to remove the input shaft, and I've been told that we have to remove the clutch shaft up here and also this brake shaft. But these brakes might get kind of interesting. I don't know how stuck on there them are going to be. Let's get these. This arm actually has a split in it, so we can kind of separate it a little bit with the screwdriver. It does have a keyway in it too, so. Alright, just gotta do that one more time on the other side. It's been under a shed at some point or something. This stuff should not be coming off like this. There we go. Now for our clutch shaft here, I'm going to try to leave the pedal on it and just wiggle it out between the floorboard. But all that holds it in are these throwout bearing dog teeth set on either side of the shaft. So all we got to do is pull these 2 bolts out. Pull these springs off either side first. Probably should have done that to start with. There's your throwout bearing. This one actually still feels pretty good. Then we can get these bolts out easier. Now this should all just slide out. There we go. Throw out bearing dogs. And then that leaves us with the brake pedal shaft. It had a Woodruff key. All I did was took out one side. We're gonna leave that one in there. Simple enough. Now we just got those 4 bolts to take out. That ought to come on. I don't know if you can tell there, but that has like copper or bronze oil light bushings. Probably, if you're restoring this, it'd probably be a good time to replace those, but these actually ain't too bad. We'll get to them when we restore this tractor. All right, after a mile long of extensions, shaft with the housing comes out. Now if a fella was this far along, he'd probably go ahead and put a gasket down there on bottom too. And you can see your neutral safety switches right there. It just runs off the shift fork. Pretty simple. Don't know how that made it off there. Here's the input shaft. Bearing still looks pretty nice. And then that's the seal we're getting after. Alright, we got our new seal with a skim coat of RTV on it. Be sure and put your spring side toward the oil. Alright, we got our fresh new seal in it. We're going to clean this up and put us a gasket with RTV on it. But before we do that, I wasn't smart enough to pick up a clutch alignment tool. So we're actually going to use the actual input shaft to align our clutch on the flywheel. Alright, after a little cleaning, our flywheel looks amazing actually still. The only reason you can see a ring is because that's where the clutch was sitting. I can actually see the rivet holes right there still fresh, so this thing ain't hardly been used at all. Now you can see our bearing's got a shield on it on this side. A feller would be wise to go ahead and just put a new bearing in there, but I couldn't get one fast enough. And this one still feels like brand new. Ain't nothing wrong with it. But it's open on the back side. So we're just going to take us a little bit of grease and ever so slightly pack it. You don't want to put too much because it'll run out on your clutch side. Somebody's actually already painted our timing marks on there. Pretty interesting. Now, we'll get our flywheel torque down. I like to put the ever so slightest amount of anti-seize on your input shaft. Then when you put your clutch disc on the input shaft, good and smooth. There we go. Work the top of it. Get all these bolts started around this pressure plate before you snug any of them up. Gotta kind of run them up evenly. We'll get them torqued down and that'll be that. You want to make sure your input shaft will slide in and out freely for when you go to put the tractor back together. Alright, we got our tube cleaned up, our gasket on there. I lubed the seal with some grease, so bingo. We got all that bolted up. We got just a little bit of grease on here to make the rod bearing slide good. A little bit of anti-seize on there and there to make the clutch slide good. A lot of people will fight me on that, but fine by me. Now these are bronze or brass, copper, whatever they are. I think they're oil light, so they're not supposed to take grease or anything. They're self-lubricating. But, and especially in something like this, I always just put grease in them. Helps keep the dirt stuck out at the end of it. But let's get this clutch shaft put in. Now I did clean up both of these shafts before I started, so everything's good and easy to put together. Put that bolt in a minute. Get those tightened down and that'll be that part. I'll put anti-seize on the shaft here since it's going to be out in the weather. That'll be a must. Make it easier to take apart next time. Ratchet's a hammer too. Easy as that. Of course, we got our anti-seize, got our Woodruff key. Alright, well, last night we got our both shafts put in and throw out bearing and everything put together. Everything's smooth as can be. Pretty happy with it. We got our flywheel and clutch back on there. So all there is now is to slide this back together. Now when you're putting an engine or a transmission back together, your mainest thing is to keep both this surface on the transmission and then the surface on the engine good and parallel the whole time you're going back together, straight with each other. It's easier said than done, to be honest with you, but especially once you get the clutch up to this input shaft, that's when it starts becoming more important on how straight you are. Now you're probably going to have to either rotate the engine, or in this case we can engage the PTO lever and turn the PTO shaft on the back to rotate our shaft here. That might not be the best way, but probably the easiest way is just to rotate the engine with a bar on the front to line your clutch. But the hard part's usually once you finally get the splines on the clutch, sometimes that pilot shaft is hard to get in the pilot bearing. So don't force it together. You don't ever want to do that. And next up is, once you get these pretty close, you know, you'll get tempted to want to put your bolt in there and use the bolt to draw them together. Don't ever do that, because you'll end up breaking like this ear off this transmission, then it's over with. So don't ever use your bolts to draw nothing together. Our service crane and our milk crate stand here has been working pretty good for us. Let's see if we can use it to slide it back together. Might be a little tricky. Well, I can't say that an excavator's really at all a good way to split a tractor, but I want to give a shout out to Daryl at the Home Pros channel. He helped me out with some advice, and thanks, bud. And we will be getting to some projects on the old Kubota Mini here soon. Now this wire is junk, but I just don't want it shorting out right now. We gotta accumulate a few things to hook the wiring up. No, it's got an adapter. I don't know if that's a clutch in there or if this is just an adapter. But let's get all this pulled off so we can put a seal in it. Either that's a really worn out overrun clutch or it's just an adapter. Kind of weird that the inside turns. Just hope this transmission ain't full of water. Actually, it looks really good in there, surprisingly. It's amazing. Now, apparently you could have a couple of different kind of PTO shafts because they had an updated version. I'm honestly not sure which one we have yet. This one actually looks like the teeth are a little bit worn on it, but I doubt we're going to put a whole lot of PTO errors on it. So, now to get to the seal, you got to take the snap ring off. Now, I'm not going to lie, I struggled for a while getting this snap ring off. I have the proper ones for an external snap ring of this style, but I don't have one for an internal. They don't have the holes on them, as you see. They just have a special set that gets behind these tongs when they're out of the groove. So that ain't no fun. Would definitely recommend buying the proper pliers for that before you did this. That bearing still feels brand new. I bought an extra one though. I wasn't sure if it was gonna be bad, but we're gonna let that one roll. Unfortunately, we got another one of the same. Double check my seal first. All right, we got our new seal in it already. I'd actually ordered two. These have kind of got like a felt ring around in there. You see that brown? Pretty interesting. Helps keep some dirt away from the seal. I don't know what difference that'd be on that and a double lip seal, but seems pretty good to me. It's interesting, the old seal was metal cage both sides. The new seal's got like rubber on both sides. It's still metal, but it's rubber all the way around. We still put RTV on it though. These snap rings are a bear. I ain't gonna lie. Man. I've been able to do a bunch of snap rings with just a pair of screwdrivers, but it's probably the hardest ones I've done there. Got it in position good. We're just gonna poke this back on there for now. Definitely have to get one before we use the PTO. Well, we got our PTO sealed up. Got the tractor split and our rear main seal and input shaft seal put in. Got everything moving freely in there. We got our oil pan sealed back up good. May as well see if there's water in the bottom of this transmission. Actually, not a lot of water. Really surprised. Not a lot of oil either. We had a Massey Ferguson 130 one time. I wanted to fix that tractor so bad. It was really hard to find parts for because it wasn't supposed to be in America. We have 135s here, but somehow we ended up with a 130 with a 4-cylinder Perkins on it. I wanted to fix it bad, but the transmission was more water than oil. And at the time, I just didn't have the time to fool with it. But ended up trading it for a divorce transfer case. I hated to, but couldn't get any parts for it. No water in that side. I actually just noticed that all the bolts for the drawbar are still there. I'll have to hunt this one down. I hunted for a while trying to figure out what hydraulic oil to put in this. Everybody said normal hydraulic fluid would be too thin for it. It was recommended that you put GL1 rated oil. I think it's like a lighter gear oil if I'm not mistaken. Could be wrong about that. But I was going to have to end up ordering it. And then everybody else was saying to put 1540 in it for hydraulic oil. I never could figure out which way to go was the best. So I figured if it was good for Takahauchi skid steers and stuff, it'd sure enough be good enough for this rig. So we're going to put plain 1540 in it. Mobile R to be good, plenty good enough for this rig. Now I'd probably rather run 1030 in most of my gas engines, but with this being such a loose tolerance old engine, 1540 will do just fine. A gallon got us above the mark, but that's interesting. It says danger on it. What does it say up here? We just got just a plain full mark. Random white shell there. Between the engine and transmission, it's supposed to hold not quite 6 gallons, so be a lot more convenient that we ran both on 1540, so that's why I went with what I did. While we're at it, let's go ahead and get rid of this garbage wiring. Now this one's been converted from 6 volt to 12 volt already, so we need to run a wire from here to our battery positive pretty much. That's your charging wire. Then we're going to have a key on wire here. When you turn your key on, that's what tells the alternator when to charge. If you left that hooked up to positive all the time, it would drain the battery. So, and then you're going to have another wire here. Of course, this depends on your alternator, but this would be most common for Chevrolets. This is a Delco Remy alternator, but this third wire is voltage sense. So you just go straight to your 12 volt right there. Now your 6 volt starter will work on 12 volt. So that's easy. Now the next thing is going to be supplying power to our coil. But as you see it, we got to have a resistor in there too. So we're going to go from here to one side of our resistor, and then from the other side of our resistor to key on. Well, that turned out pretty good. I like the braided wire loom better, but that's all I have at the moment. So we'll come back and redo that at the restoration point, but that'll sure enough get us running for now. Kind of doubt that's even gonna work, but we'll find out. We got our alternator wired up. We got our key switch wired up. Put 12 volts to that, and then it sends, I believe, 6 volts to our coil. I didn't remake that yet. We're gonna be lazy with that for now. But now on our key switch, if you notice on our key switch, it's just an off and on position with nothing else on the dash besides the old light switch. You might ask yourself, how in the world do you start this old thing? Your starter comes up here to one side, and then you have battery 12 volt power on the other side of it. To actuate it to start, if you come over here to your gear cover, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, reverse, and all the way to the right and up, you got S, which is start. So when you want to start it up, turn your key on, go all the way right, and push up. That's all it takes to start it up. Pretty cool. Keeps you from having it in gear. Old way of doing that. I don't know why they didn't carry on. Finished up the last little bit last night after dark. I've been itching all day to come home and try this thing out. But we put new battery cable ends on. We had to steal the battery out of the excavator. That's going to be our biggest expense around here, is batteries and tires. These will actually stay up for an evening. Don't air up tires like that. I'm asking for it. I'm sure these have got tubes in them, but still, that's pretty dangerous airing up a tire like that. Just asking for it. I just gotta take a lap on it. So we got fresh wires. We got gas in the tank. Let's turn our fuel on. Alright, we're gonna hit this. Turn our ignition on. And if we take the shifter, push it all the way right and up, it ought to turn over. Well, our wiring we did was pretty good. Seams are. Oh, we finally got fuel flow into our car. There's so much rust floating in that tank, we'll have to wash it out here pretty quick if we're going to mess with this tractor much, but eventually we'll get us a brand new tank. Alright, we got our battery disconnect on. Now I haven't crunked this tractor up since our first video in July, so we'll see what it'll do. Go all the way with our shifter and up to start. Give it a little bit of choke. I'm sure the throttle linkage is going to have to be adjusted. Man, 3 months been sitting. I can't believe it. Ain't no way that started up that good. Well, it's time for the best part of working on a project. That's driving it around. Let's see if we can make us a couple of laps before these tires go flat. Still can't believe that started like that. Oh, the brakes work a little bit. That got a little sketchy. Fourth gear is not the gear to play around in. Definitely got a tune on the carburetor, so. PTO and lift even works. Check that out. Don't have no weight on it, so it don't want to go down. Man, that was a fun little project. Man, that was crazy that it was running like that. I had a little bit of trouble with it. It does need to be tuned a lot. I got a carb kit to go in it, but I got to come back and get us a hose to go from the intake to the air filter. I have no idea what they've done to this air filter housing, so we'll either have to work on that or find us another one. It's crazy that this thing is actually in pretty good shape other than being beat up a little bit. It'd run way better if I did some work on the car. The alternator actually charges the battery, believe it or not. You could hear the belt squealing on it. That belt is about as garbage as one could be. It looks like our governor shaft seal's leaking a little bit. That ain't too bad of a fix, I hope. We'll put it on the list. Our radiator's leaking a little bit around the seam. I'm surprised that's all it's leaking. I added some to it yesterday and it only took about 3 water bottles worth of water and it was right at the top, so I imagine it leaked out to about right in here somewhere. So that's actually pretty good. Really, the next step is to save for us some tires. That'll probably be a long ways away, but unfortunately, the tires is worth about as much as you could buy the tractor for, so it's a shame these things go so cheap, you know. The main reason is because it's not a live PTO or hydraulic system. You have to engage the PTO and let the clutch out for either of them to work. That's kind of unfortunate, you know. Had they have not built them with those two things, everybody would have one. So a lot of people would just put a drawbar on them and use them for pulling stuff. Which is probably what we're going to use it mostly for. I would love to get a pull behind bush hog with wheels on it. I think that'd be pretty fun to use it for. I think we got a disc. I don't know if it'll tote it, but we might play in the garden a little bit with it. We got bigger tractors for the real stuff, so this is going to be a good tractor for the farm here. Me and Dad have had this for probably 5 years or so now, and it feels good to actually drive it around. We've been staring at it and always wanting to get to it, but never did, you know. I've worked on some very expensive equipment and restorations, all kind of stuff. But this right here is about as fun as it gets. I have no idea why. I'm gonna try to catch us some tires on sale at some point. That's really the stopping factor on this project, is the cost of the tires. But we'll get there at some point. Sure enough, gonna get us a fuel tank. We got a couple of seals to put in it still. Well, I think I'm gonna put the battery back in the Mini and call this one a wrap. Not sure how soon we're gonna get back to this project, but it'll sure enough be in videos to come. I hope y'all have enjoyed this video as much as I have. I know Dad will be glad to see it. And as always, thank y'all for watching. Having a lot of fun with this.